It started as just another noisy bus ride, until a group of cocky teenagers picked the wrong target. What they didn't know was that the quiet old man with the cane wasn't weak at all. He was a Vietnam veteran with scars, stories, and a lesson that would silence the entire bus and change their lives forever. The city bus groaned to a halt, its brakes shrieking like a tired old animal. The doors swung open with a hiss, spilling the humid summer air inside. People shuffled aboard, their faces weary, their bodies heavy with the weight of another long day. Among them was an elderly black man. His steps were deliberate, each one a testament to both strength and years that had tried to wear him down but failed. In one hand, he carried a modest grocery bag. In the other, a wooden cane polished smooth by time and use. His frame bent ever so slightly, but there was no fragility in his presence, only a quiet endurance. He eased himself into a seat near the back, resting his cane against his knee. The bus jolted forward, rattling over potholes, but his gaze stayed fixed on the passing streets outside the window. The fading daylight brushed against his weathered features, illuminating lines carved deep by struggle and wisdom. He was silent, unassuming, yet somehow his stillness spoke louder than the chatter filling the bus. Most ignored him, lost in their phones or thoughts. A few passengers cast fleeting glances. One child peeked curiously, and a kind stranger offered a polite smile. But to most, he was just another old man taking a ride home. What they didn't see, what none of them could have guessed, was that this man had survived things that would have broken stronger souls. The jungles of Vietnam still lingered in his memory, the smell of smoke, the echo of gunfire, the constant fight to make it back alive. To him, a crowded bus at dusk was calm compared to the chaos he once endured. But calm never lasts forever. At the next stop, the mood shifted. The bus screeched against the curb outside Lincoln High School, and a sudden burst of noise invaded the space. 4 teenagers clattered up the steps, their laughter sharp, their movements loud and restless. They were full of the kind of arrogance only youth can afford, the kind that dares the world to challenge it. They scanned the rows of passengers, searching for amusement, for a target. One of them, tall with a baseball cap turned backward, spotted the old man at the back. He smirked, nudged his friend, and tilted his chin toward him. "Yo, check him out," he said, loud enough for the whole bus to hear. Their laughter grew as they swaggered down the aisle. The other riders stiffened. Some lowered their heads, pretending not to notice. A woman shifted her purse closer. A man in a suit kept his eyes glued to his phone. Silence became complicity. The teens stopped in front of the old man. Their words dripped mockery. "Lose your stop, Grandpa? Shouldn't you be at the retirement home? Hey, what's that cane for? You walking, or is it the only thing holding you up?" Their taunts filled the bus, bouncing off the walls like ugly echoes. Yet the old man remained motionless, his eyes fixed outside, his hands resting firmly on his cane. His silence only emboldened them. "Bet he's got some cash," one muttered. "What's in the bag, old man? Cat food?" The laughter stung the air. The bus had turned into a stage, and the old man their unwilling performance. But his composure did not break. Finally, one of them, the boy in the cap, tapped his cane lightly with the tip of his sneaker. A small gesture, but filled with disrespect. That was the moment the old man turned. His eyes met theirs. They weren't angry. They weren't fearful. They were something else, piercing, unflinching, heavy with a weight the teens couldn't yet comprehend. Passengers noticed it too, their unease deepening as if the atmosphere itself shifted. The youngest of the teens whispered, almost reluctant, "Maybe we should chill." But his voice was swallowed by the bravado of the others. "You deaf old man?" Another barked. "Or maybe you don't speak English." The bus rattled over another bump, jolting everyone in their seats. And then at last the old man spoke. His voice was low, steady, each word precise enough to silence the entire bus. "Do you boys always find fun in bothering strangers?" The laughter faltered. The air grew heavy. Even the troublemakers hesitated, their confidence slipping. "What's it to you?" One shot back, his voice forced. The old man tilted his head slightly, his eyes never leaving theirs. "Because I've met young men like you before," he said. His tone wasn't threatening, but the weight of it was undeniable. Different time. Different place. They didn't laugh so much. When they finally learned what real fear feels like, the teens stiffened. Their smirks faltered. Passengers held their breath, watching. The quiet man with the cane was no ordinary passenger. He was something else entirely. Something dangerous. Something they hadn't expected. And for the first time, the teens realized they might have picked the wrong man. The old man did not flinch. His cane stood tall by his side, but his voice, calm, steady, and unyielding, was the true anchor in that moment. Slowly, he raised his head until his eyes locked with theirs. "You think this cane is what keeps me standing?" His words were deliberate, heavy enough to silence the chuckles still lingering in the teens' throats. "No, boys. This cane is just wood. What holds me up is something far stronger." The boy in the cap tried to laugh, but it rang hollow. The swagger that once dripped from every word was gone, replaced with the thin shell of bravado. "Yeah? And what's that supposed to be?" he muttered, though his voice cracked under the weight of the silence pressing down on him. The old man's chest rose with a deep, deliberate breath. His gaze swept over the group, not angry, not mocking, but piercing. The kind of look that carried memories too heavy for words. "When I was your age," he said, his voice low but clear enough to carry through the bus, "I carried something heavier than a cane. I carried a rifle through jungles half a world away. I was 19, just a year or two older than you." The name dropped like thunder. Vietnam. The bus fell into complete silence. Even the usual hum of the engine seemed muffled, as though the machine itself was listening. The man's voice did not waver. It deepened, edged with memories of dirt, blood, and loss. "We didn't waste time on games like this. We grew up overnight too fast. Some of us didn't come home at all. And those who did..." He paused, his knuckles tightening against the cane. "We carried more than our gear. We carried scars. Some you can see, most you can't." The smallest of the teens shifted in his seat, staring at the floor as if the truth in those words had found him personally. Even the boy in the hoodie, who had been the loudest, tugged at his sleeve, his smirk gone. The old man leaned forward slightly, his voice dropping lower, darker, forcing every ear on the bus to strain closer. "You want to know about fear? Fear isn't sitting on a bus being mocked by children. Fear is hearing the snap of a twig in the dead of night and not knowing if it means another minute of life. Or the end of it. Fear is watching your best friend fall beside you and knowing you can't stop to help him. Because if you do, you'll never make it back yourself." His voice faltered for just a heartbeat, the ghosts of the past flashing across his expression. But he steadied himself, raising his chin with quiet pride. "And do you know what else I carried?" His eyes narrowed on the boy in the cap. Discipline. Respect. The understanding that strength isn't about tearing people down. Strength is knowing when to stand tall and when to sit in silence. A weight pressed over every passenger in the bus. A woman near the middle dabbed at her eyes. A man clenched his jaw and turned his face toward the window, too proud to let his tears show. The teens, once brimming with bravado, now seemed smaller, like children caught in a storm they couldn't control. The boy in the hoodie finally spoke, his voice fragile. We didn't mean anything by it, man." The old man nodded faintly, his expression softening, but not surrendering. "I know, but words have weight, boys. Heavier than you realize. And you never know the burden a man is already carrying." The bus screeched to a stop, but no one rose. Even the doors opening with their usual wheeze couldn't break the spell. The teenagers remained rooted, awkward, their gazes flickering between the floor and the man they had mocked. Passengers began to look differently at him now, not as an old man with a cane, but as something more. A survivor. A teacher. A living reminder of strength born from pain. Their admiration glimmered quietly, some in the form of tears, others in the hush of reverence. The boy in the cap, once the loudest, now stared down at his sneakers. His voice was low, almost shameful. We were just messing around. The old man's gaze softened again, though his tone remained steady. Messing around can carry consequences you don't walk away from, he said. I've seen too many boys learn that the hard way. Another teen swallowed hard. Did you lose people out there? The man's eyes darkened, his voice barely above a whisper but cutting sharper than any shout. More than I care to count. Brothers in arms. Brave men. Some never made it back. And some came home, but never truly left the war behind. That's how fragile strength can be when it's tested the wrong way. The youngest, who had said the least, finally looked up. We didn't mean to disrespect you. The man gave a small nod. Disrespect isn't just in words, he replied. It's in how you carry yourself. Remember that. The silence that followed was suffocating. No one dared breathe too loudly. It was broken only when a woman near the front spoke, her voice steady but touched with awe. You boys should be grateful. You just got a lesson most people will never live long enough to hear. Her words broke the tension like a spell. The teens looked around, realizing how the rest of the bus now stared at them, not with fear, but with quiet judgment. They shuffled forward, mumbling apologies. When the bus hissed to a stop again, they climbed off, their laughter left behind on the hot pavement. The silence that filled the space after their departure wasn't empty. It was reverent. Passengers leaned closer together, whispering about fathers, uncles, and brothers who had served, about the weight of war and the quiet power of survival. The old man sat as he had before, steady, calm, unshaken. But now the passengers saw him differently, not just as an elder, but as a vessel of lived truth. One young woman across from him finally gathered the courage to speak. Thank you, she said softly, for what you did, for what you went through. The old man gave a small, restrained nod. His eyes softened, though his words remained humble. I did what I had to. That's all any of us can do. What matters is what you do now, with the life you're given. The words settled over the bus like a heavy blanket, pressing into each passenger's heart. When the bus reached Ashland Avenue, the man rose. His cane tapped softly against the floor as he stood. Passengers shifted instinctively, giving him room. He paused at the door, his gaze sweeping the faces once more. Be kind to each other, he said simply. You never know the battle someone's fighting. And then he stepped into the fading evening, the doors closing behind him. The bus pulled away, carrying its passengers forward. But each of them bore something invisible now, not just groceries, backpacks, or briefcases, but a lesson. A story etched in silence and scars, a reminder that respect, humility, and kindness are not optional. They are necessary, and maybe, just maybe, the teenagers walking home that night would carry it too. A lesson taught not with fists or shouts, but with quiet dignity. That day, on an ordinary bus, respect was taught without a single punch thrown, only wisdom, scars, and truth. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs reminding that strength isn't in cruelty, but in quiet dignity. And before you go, hit subscribe, because here, every story carries a lesson worth remembering.